Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome to the show. Today, once again, we will be talking about Iran-US proposed talks that are still on a kind of a deadlock because the 14 points response that the Iranians gave, the American president called it a garbage, and he says that this ceasefire is on the life support, which is really very dangerous. That he was referring. And on the other side, the Iranian says that we have to protect the interest of Iran, the Iranian people, and its territory. So there's a huge gap at the moment between the two countries as far as the negotiations or proposed documents or the file that they have been exchanging for almost maybe more than a month through Pakistan. I have a very prominent and senior analyst, defense analyst, and international affairs analyst, Brigadier retired Farooq Hameed. Thank you very much, sir, for joining me. Kindly tell me that how you view the two point of views carried by the Americans as well as the Iranians at the moment.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you very much, Waheed Hussain sir. The problem is that whenever the expectations go up for agreement, to the extent that one of our very senior ministers even talked straightly yesterday, as quoted, as he was quoted on the social media, that maybe Trump 2 to 3 hours he would be going to China, staying in Pakistan while going to China. So expectations were very high in the last few days that their memorandum of understanding, a one-page memorandum, has been prepared and it's going to likely to get through. And our leadership in Islamabad are now eagerly waiting for the breakthrough to take place. But let me tell you something. Trump has been a great disappointment. It is not Trump who has said that this is garbage, who has rejected this, the Iranian proposal. It is the Israelis. Behind Trump, remember, it is the Israelis who are speaking. The Israeli National Security Committee, I believe, I read this report somewhere 2-3 days ago. They said, no way do we support the agreement between United States and Iran. And then came in the spoiling, the role as a spoiler, when I believe they initiated those false flags, missile attacks on UAE. Iran initially said, we have not done it. This was a few days ago. But then suddenly there was a big barrage of missile attacks from Iran. And he said, oh, that means UAE, which is the forward base of the Israelis in the region, and closest to the Israelis amongst the Gulf country, is now being pitted against Iran. So the nexus, the hardcore Zionists around the White House, inside the White House, the Israeli leadership, UAE, and the Indians. I had a hunch from day one that they would make all kind of effort to sabotage this agreement for which Pakistan, the civil and military leadership have worked so hard. So does it mean that now, by rejecting the Iranian proposal, has Trump rejected our efforts for reconciliation, for mediation, for bringing a rapprochement between United States and Iran? This is what it looks like. While he, on one hand, he keeps praising the Pakistani leadership by name, and on the other, look, after so much of hard work, and United States has been saying in the past, like the Iranians, that we trust the Pakistanis. So if you trust the Pakistanis, and if the Pakistanis have got some kind of a proposal finalized from Iran, and I'm sure there must have been a lot of two-way communication, three-way communication, Iran, Pakistan, and United States. And in the end, you just come up and say that you reject this offer or proposal by the Iranians, and then threatening them. 3 days ago also he threatened that we make Iran suffer a nuclear holocaust. This is a very shameful statement coming from the United States President, the United States head of state, most irresponsible and most unstatesmanlike statement from the American president. This is not the way. This is not the way you manage such crisis. You got to show a bigger heart. You're a superpower. So what if Iran has rejected? Iran has made proposals that go with the sovereignty, with the security interest of Iran. Please let the mediation process continue. Pakistan should have been given a chance to once again come back and talk to the Iranians that, look, you may be having a very hard-line position. Cool down, take a step back, so the Americans can also take a step back. And look what the Israelis are saying. They're saying, no way, we would like to move the forces in Iran to physically get hold of that enriched uranium. And the Iranians say, no way, you're violating our sovereignty, that is our right. So my point is this stalemate, this deadlock, I believe has been created by Trump, not by the Iranians. Iranians are open to dialogue. They're open to discussions.
So today we have seen that the Turkish foreign minister was sitting with the Qatari foreign minister, and there was a joint statement. They said that we are opposing any kind of resumption of the war, because they said that we are in favor of ending this war permanently. But the statements which are coming from the Washington or the White House, they are very dangerous when he says that this ceasefire is on a life support. You're giving a kind of indication that it can end at any time. And as you were referring that the Israelis are really very much active to continue this war because that is in their favor. So how you see, these GCC countries, except somehow that you were referring that UAE is, more closer to the Israelis and the Indians, but the rest of the 6 GCC countries, they are very much interested to end this war and then, start a kind of a constructive engagement between Iranians and the Americans.
The problem is not the constructive arrangement between the Iranians and the Americans or a ceasefire between the Iranians and the Americans. Please understand the problem. The hard core issue is in Israel. They're not interested. They're not interested. In a ceasefire, they want action to start again. They want the war to start again. They want the Muslim countries to be on fire once again. So they're still continuing with their strikes.
Do you think that the Americans can afford to continue with this war?
I think the Iranians have demonstrated their determination, their courage and bravery, and their resilience. The Iranians have, in the last 5 weeks, they have regrouped. They have reorganized their military hardware, their weapon systems, and they are ready to take on the Americans or the Israelis. Any aggression from anywhere, they're ready to take them on, and they might do it very, very more harshly this time. You see, President Trump is supposed to meet a National Security Committee or National Security Council in Washington, in the White House today, and take a decision as to what is to be done now, what are the options available, what course of action is to be taken. And remember, today is the 12th, and in 2 days' time, he's supposed to be in Beijing. And to be very honest now, just to come back to that point, I don't think that within the next 48 hours, everything is possible with Trump. You just can't predict him. It might just happen. they're going to China. He stops for 2 hours, as a stopover for 2 hours at the Noor Khan Air Base and meets our top leadership. But that would be only, I would say, symbolic. Not that he's going to announce anything positive. Maybe just praise our leadership, praise Pakistan, and then fly over to China. And I think the real discussions, the talks are going to take place in China. And we've heard that the Chinese are telling the Americans, go back to the United Nations, go back to international law, give up this might is right uh, uh, strategy.
Okay.
And
Okay.
do not
Sir. Yeah, please do complete. Please complete.
and do not. And the Chinese would warn them that you are destabilizing the economy of the world. You are destabilizing many countries, including your allies in Europe, and you're even destabilizing your own economy. And today, Trump has said in his warning that Iran will get sanctions if it keeps sending oil to China. And Strait of Hormuz, well, the Chinese have a right. We must go back to status quo, the way it was being managed 2 months ago. So I hold Trump responsible for not acting wisely, for not acting, for trashing international law, and for becoming a stooge in the hand of the Israelis. This is exactly what is happening. And I believe, and let me tell you, the American bases in the Gulf, which were targeted very aggressively by the Iranians, go and watch the CNN report 5 days ago as to all the destruction that took place in those American bases in the Gulf country, the number of people who died, the number of American soldiers who were critically injured and then were flown to their base hospital in Germany, and all those F-15, the F-16, the F-18, the A-10s, and the drones that were shot down by the Iranians. When Trump says that, oh, we've destroyed the Iranian military capability, well, it's not. It's just the opposite what has happened. The Iranians are very clever, very sharp. They have access to very good latest technology.
Yeah, of course. I have a two question. One is that the Chinese factor in the entire this Middle East crisis. Naturally, the China more than 80% of their energy, or maybe 90% of their energy, that goes through the Middle East. You know, these GCC countries, including especially the Iranians. And do you think that I mean, they can afford to have a new kind of arrangement that the Iranians are now declaring or saying regarding the Strait of Hormuz? They say that we have to, put some kind of a taxes, maybe giving a name of a toll or whatever you call it. Would it be in the interest of Chinese, which naturally imports a lot of energy from Middle East? One. Second is that the Chinese, as I have heard in the international media, that Chinese have asked their companies which were being banned by the Americans that they should continue to operate, and they are not supposed to follow the American instructions, especially which is related to the Middle East, imports or whatever they were being doing. So it means that the Chinese are given a kind of a chance to those companies which are operating from China. So do you think that all these issues are going to be taken up by the Chinese leadership with the Mr. President
Yes, this
Trump?
visit to China by Trump is very important and crucial at this stage. All actions and reaction that have been seen in the past, the American threat of the tariff war, if you remember, a few months ago, and finally the tariff war ended in the favor of the Chinese, because the Chinese stood up, and the yuan became became a very strong currency vis-a-vis the American dollar. So my point is this: the Chinese have a very close association with the Iranians from the economic point of view, from the energy point of view, and the obviously technological point of view. So the for the economy of both the countries. So that is going to be between Iran and China, as whether the Chinese would probably more come on motivate the Iranians not to go to that level. They might even exempt the Chinese from any toll charges, Chinese vessels, and for that matter, even Pakistan. So my point is this: they're going to come face to face, and all these things are going to be issues are going to be thrashed out very, very openly and very closely. The Chinese operate in a very cool manner. They're not rash. They're not unpredictable type people. They deal international diplomacy with a sense of responsibility, and that is why if Trump makes a post on Twitter for about 10 lines, and if the Chinese have to respond, they'll respond in only one line. So that's the difference between the way the Chinese address international issues, any type of international issue. So China is not going to back off in any way. China will keep supporting Iran. China has supported Iran's sovereignty, its security, and that is one of the main reasons why the Americans, they made continuous threats to eliminate and exterminate the Iranians and remove them from the face of the earth. But they know very well that the Iranians are fully backed by the Chinese, which is an emerging, I would not even use the word emerging, which is now a superpower that looks into the eyes of the Americans. I believe Trump is going to China with in a very weak position, because this is the second time he's invaded Iran, and this is the second time that he has been hit hard by a country many times smaller in size and many times smaller in resources. In fact, there is no comparison. So I believe, and the Chinese, as you know, that as I said, they talk less, they act more, and they don't make a lot of hue and cry. So I think Trump is going to have a difficult time dealing with the Chinese.
Do you think that the Chinese demand that there should be a complete end of the war, including Lebanon? Because they keep on saying about the Lebanon. Even today, for last so many days, despite the fact that there is a ceasefire in between the Lebanese as well as the Israelis, broken, that were being mediated by the Americans, but still the Israelis continue to bombard various villages on the border, even within the Lebanese cities. So do you think that that is a kind of a pressure they want to build up and continue to put on Iran, that they should say something about the nuclear issue? Because the Iranians say that at the moment we should open up the Strait of Hormuz. Both Iranians and the Americans should lift the blockade so that there should be a smooth transportation of the energy. One. Second is to end the war completely, and third is that there should be a compensation whatever destruction is being made inside Iran by the Americans as well as the Israelis, especially the infrastructure related to civilians. So do you think that this is a genuine kind of a demand that should be agreed, and the difficult issues of the nuclear issue or the proxies issue or the missiles issue that most of the time the Israelis and the Americans talk about, that the Iranians should stop producing any kind of a missile or drones, that these issues should be taken up later on? Do you think that is a genuine kind of a proposal by the Iranians?
I think the Chinese have already supported the Iranian proposal in broad terms, and the main point of support is that yes, this war must end. No more wars, invasions of Iran. Sanctions must be lifted, and the Strait of Hormuz issue should be resolved amicably. The nuclear issue should follow up later on in negotiations, and that can continue once a permanent ceasefire has taken place. But again, I come back to the point. Even if the Iranian Americans agree to 50% of what the Chinese are saying or the Iranians are saying, who is going to guarantee? Is Trump going to guarantee the future behavior of the Israelis? Chinese can't guarantee that. So that is why the Chinese have kept a strong position uh, with Israel. They're not supporting Israel. They're supporting Iran very openly. Their sovereignty, their security, and they believe that the nuclear issue, as I said earlier, can always be followed up later. And yes, why not? So uh, sanctions must be lifted so that Iran can get back to normal. They have to rebuild their country, and all those frozen assets, if not all, at least 50 to 60% of those frozen assets and billions of dollars Iranian assets, they need to be defrozen so that the Iranians are compensated for all the mega losses that have incurred in their civilian infrastructure, in the energy infrastructure, and all around destruction that has taken place. But again, as I say, who will control, who will guarantee, who will be the guarantor that Israel will stop its greater Israeli design, that Israel will stop attacking Lebanon? If the Americans don't do it, they cannot guarantee, then I am sorry to say that there may not be permanent peace in the Middle East as long as the Israelis keep up this aggressive behavior against the Muslim countries in the region.
Thank you very much, Farooq Hameed, a senior analyst, for giving you a very good analysis and input on the very important issue that is still, in the development, because the entire world was watching that the mediation conducted by the Pakistanis would bring some kind of a, result between the two countries, but still there's a gap between the Iranians and the Americans as far as the papers, the 14 points they have exchanged with each other. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you.